I am beyond excited. First of all, Greg is always one of my favorite person to listen to presentations because you're so awesome. But touching on link building, which is a subject that I kind of suck at. So I have no doubt that I'm going to learn a ton today. But I'm going to hand it over to you guys. I would love for you to give us a little bit of an intro. I'm going to start with Olesia. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm working with lead generation projects in the US, and some of them are local. I'm always looking for quick wins and easy link building solutions, which are usually harder for me as no one likes lead gens, actually.
Fantastic. So Arnout, welcome. Can you give us a little background on yourself?
I'm Arnout Hellemans. I'm basically a freelance SEO consultant and done a ton in local for big corporations, but also for small businesses. And I'm based in Amsterdam, and I'm looking forward to this. Thanks.
Me too. And the man of the hour, Mr. Greg Gifford. Tell us about you. Where are you located at these days?
So I'm just outside of Dallas. I work for a boutique agency called Search Lab. We do local SEO and PPC for people all over. And usually I'm on the road speaking at conferences, but thanks to COVID, we get to do lots of virtual stuff like this instead.
Yay. I know. Honestly, it's awesome because I get a chance to connect with so many people that I never have gotten a chance to before. So I'm not complaining. I'm enjoying it. So Greg has an incredible presentation. I'm going to let you jump in. And you guys, if you didn't know it, you can please submit your questions in the chat. I will be watching, and we will be gearing up once Greg is done with his presentation. So keep them coming.
All right.
Take it away, Greg.
Let's share the screen. And play the slides. All right. So this is Ricky Bobby's guide to winning at local link building in 2021 and beyond. And we kind of already did the intro to me, and here's me speaking at MozCon. It's a cool picture, so I like to share it. The important thing I always like to mention is I do a weekly video series called Local Search Tuesdays. It's short 3 to 5 minute clips of helpful information about local search. You can catch them on our blog every Tuesday, so go check those out. And, outside of the COVID thing, I did typically speak at a ton of conferences all over the world. And, a lot of times you see conference presentations where the presenters aren't really that engaging. They may have some really awesome information, but they're not great at public speaking. And there'll be a podium, and the speaker just stands stiffly behind the podium. And most of the time, they kind of have their back to the crowd, and they're just reading their own slides behind them. And even worse, a lot of times, the background of the slide is just plain white, and it's black Arial font with lots and lots of bullet points, and they're just reading bullet points. And that's super not engaging. And I firmly believe that bullet points kill kittens. So today's presentation will be entirely kitty safe. And you saw the Ricky Bobby reference there at the beginning. I was a film major in college. I have a full sleeve of movie portrait tattoos on my right arm, and my right leg is completely sleeved up with stuff from the Goonies. I'm about to start on my left arm. So I love movies. I love to share my love of movies when I talk about SEO. So there's always a movie theme. So today's theme is comedy movies. And one of the things that I do is I go back and include at least one movie for every year in the last 50 years. So today we've got 90 references to go through in the next half hour here. 21 of those references are from 1985, which is the high point of American film comedy. Now, I know some of these movies will be a bit more obscure, especially if you're a bit younger. So there is attribution over to the side. So not only will you learn some cool stuff about link building, you'll have some cool movies to go and watch later. So let's kick this off. Why the long face? Are you spending too much time looking up at competitors that rank higher than you in local searches? It's really frustrating, isn't it? I know that link building can be really difficult, and a lot of times people that do SEO feel pretty clueless about how to build links. Now, I don't want to seem like I've got a huge head with its own gravity system, but I do know a lot about local link building, and I'm here to share some awesome tips with you today. And unlike some speakers that you may have seen in other webinar presentations in the past, or even at conferences, I'm not going to talk out of my ass. I'm going to give you actionable tips that you can really use to make a difference. But keep in mind, when it comes to local SEO in general, and specifically local link building, there is no miracle pill. You have to put in the hard work. You have to put in the time to get these things to fall in your favor in the future. But if you follow all the tips that I share with you today, your sites are going to benefit, and they'll be as visible and as awesome as the Flying Elvises. So just like a fat guy in a little coat, I'm going to squeeze in a ton of information. I've got like almost 100 slides to do today. So today's presentation is the link building presentation you've been missing. I need somebody doing like on the side. I hope you guys are laughing at my cheesy movie jokes, because nobody ever really talks about how local link building is different. And everybody that's seen Encino Man or outside of the US, California Man, hopefully you're laughing at my joke that I've got link on a link building slide. But let's be honest, most of the presentations that you're going to see at conferences or in webinars or even read things about link building online, they all really suck. Because it's all like, let's build a cool infographic and then go do some outreach and get that infographic in the Guardian. You know what? Fuck infographics. That is not a legitimate link building strategy that most of the world can use. Because those presentations, it's always somebody up on stage, and they're really just there to try to get more business either for themselves or for their agency. Because it's mostly a brag piece. They're up there talking about this $1 million link building budget, and we put all this effort of 45 people and 15 people writing the content doing this, and then we use 32.5 PR agencies to do outreach, and we got 5,332,123.5 links. It's realistic for no one. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's total bullshit, because those presentations don't apply to most of the businesses out there. We don't have massive sites with millions of pages and thousands and thousands and thousands of inbound links. And we don't have these massive budgets. And in fact, when we're talking local SEO, it's SMBs. And most small businesses, maybe at most, have a few hundred unique linking domains. So these huge campaigns to get thousands of links just don't really apply to us. So you have to change the way that you think about link building if you do local SEO. Because in local SEO, you should have a completely different perspective on links and why they matter and how to evaluate those links and how to acquire those links. Google's local algorithm looks at links differently. There's a difference in the way that the local algorithm weights links and evaluates links and provides some association of value with those links compared to what the traditional Google algorithm does. So in local SEO, we have to look at links differently as well. But even if you're out there and you're watching this and you've got clients that aren't local businesses and you don't really do local SEO, the shift in perspective of how to think about real world link building should be able to help you get better links and not waste a lot of money and effort. So in local SEO, one of the important things that I want to point out, we don't give a shit if a link is a no-follow link. Followed links, no-followed links. Also, by the way, if I ever catch you tweeting and calling it a do-follow link, I'm going to unfollow you and I'm going to publicly ridicule you. They're not do-follow links, they're follow links. But anyway, follow versus no-follow. Big deal in regular link building circles, because you don't want to go get a no-follow link because it doesn't pass any link juice, man. But in local SEO, it doesn't matter. No-follow links still work. They still carry value. And I strongly suspect that it's because Google understands that the scale is different and that small businesses don't have lots and lots of links. And small businesses naturally are going to get links from no-follow sources, and those should still matter. So we don't really care. It's just not even in our mindset when we're doing link building, whether that link is a follow link or a no follow link. Also, I don't give a shit about authority metrics. If you're Moz, it's domain authority, and everybody else has a different name for it. But we don't really care about the authority metrics, the domain authority, the trust flow, whatever that might be. Because typically in local, you're going to get links from local businesses, which I'll talk a bit more about in a second. But those local businesses probably aren't huge authoritative sites, and they're not going to have a massive authority metric. And traditional link builders are going to avoid that because they only want links from the really authoritative sites. But with local SEO, we actually want to get links from low authority sites because those are the local links that the algorithm really values. And we don't use bullshit tactics. We use real world tactics. In fact, marketing has kind of come full circle, because in local SEO, we're doing all of those old school marketing techniques that businesses used to do 50 years ago before the internet existed. We're out there trying to get exposure in the local community with these old school tactics because it matters in the real world, and it's just an extra bonus. It's a killer strategy to get awesome local links too. So we build links based on relationships that have a real world value outside of digital marketing. Again, you've got to break that mindset of everything is about Google and think more about what's good for customers in the real world. And that's a generalized great way to think about local SEO. Get out of the box, think about real world value, but especially when it comes to local links. Those local links with real world value are awesome for multiple reasons, not just for Google. And local links are awesome because most of your competitors aren't doing local SEO, or even probably don't even know what local SEO is, which means it's going to be really hard for them to reverse engineer why you're outranking them. And for everybody that's fans of A Christmas Story, check it out. I've got him on my arm. But it's really hard for them to reverse engineer those links, because think about what you do if you have a competitor that's outranking you. What's the first thing you do when it comes to links? You're going to go pull their links using your link tool of choice and check out those links. Well, when your competitors do that to you, they're going to run your links through a tool and they're going to think that they're shitty links. In fact, I've always for years said that kind of the goal for local link building is you want to get shitty church links, because church links are awesome. They're not as easy to get, but if you can get a link from a church, that's really relevant down to like a neighborhood level. It's a super powerful local link to get. But church websites have no authority. And typically some of them are kind of ugly. You run them through a link building tool, your competitors are going to be like, oh, it's clearly not those crappy links that they're getting, so it must be something else. And they move on. The other thing that makes them hard to reverse engineer is a lot of times your links are going to be based on relationships that you have, and your competitors won't have those same relationships, so they won't be able to utilize those relationships to get links. And another cool thing is local links require a whole lot less effort to acquire. You don't have to put in all of that effort with all of that budget and go after all of those things. And in fact, you can build a whole crap ton of local links for less effort than one of those link building presentation strategies where you're going after one traditional link with a massive infographic or big piece of content and a lot of effort and a lot of PR outreach. And you can spend a minimal amount of effort compared to that and get a lot of local links. There's 5 basic ways that you can get local links. Number 1, easiest one, pay for sponsorships. And sure, Google's not okay with you buying links, but Google's totally okay with you buying a sponsorship that results in a link. So it's great. Now, keep in mind, too, you want to have an even profile. Google is pattern detection, so you don't want to just say, oh, that's an easy one. I saw Greg say that. Let's go do just that one thing, because then it doesn't look natural in the real world. So make sure you have a pretty even mix, but paying for sponsorships, great way to get links. And then donate time or volunteer in the local community. Join a local group or local organization and just get involved in the community so that your business name is out there. And you can also just share awesome, truly helpful, relevant, awesome information. And then if you really want to kind of go towards the edge, if you're a little bit wackier, you could be really creative and get random mentions and links just because you stand out from all of the other competition because you're a little bit of an odd duck. So like I mentioned earlier, a lot of things we do are based on relationships. That's one of the first things that I always talk about when I'm talking about local link building. Take advantage of the relationships that you've already built. A lot of times you're going to have relationships because that business has been there for years in that community and that location for years. You're going to have relationships with other local businesses and other local entities. Take advantage of those and get links, because you can get those links that your competitors may not be able to get. And take advantage of things that you're already doing in the community. A lot of businesses are already community minded. They're, doing highway cleanup. They're donating time at local organizations. They're sponsoring events. They're doing all these things in the community. Again, old school marketing tactics. Take advantage of that. Make sure you're following through and getting the link that you can get, because you're doing all of those things. So I'm going to run through a couple of ideas here, a little bit more specifically. straight up tactics for local links that any business that's a local business can use. Like I just mentioned, sponsorships are great. Find any type of local event. 5Ks are awesome. Now, obviously, this is a little bit more focused on a post-COVID world. Local link buildings have been a bit harder during COVID with the social distancing and no public events, but keep in mind, this is focused on the future. So local sponsorships like golf tournaments, 5Ks, marathons, any kind of local community event that you can sponsor, jump on those. They're always awesome. Local charities, look for especially locally based charities or local charity events. Be a part of those events, be a part of those charities. It's great ways to get links. Local volunteer opportunities. Let's say your entire staff donates time to do highway cleanup, or your staff goes to work at the soup kitchen downtown or anything like that. Any type of volunteer opportunity is always good for link building. Local meetups are great. This is another one I really like because there's a couple of strategies that you can do here. You can go to a site like meetup.com and look for local meetings that are happening in your area. And first strategy, if you've got a space that you can offer to a group that doesn't have a permanent meeting space, like a conference room, or we do this a lot with car dealerships that we work with where their service department closes at 7, but the dealership's open until 9. So there's 2 hours where that nice service lounge waiting area is just sitting there not being used, where you could offer that to a local organization that's a smaller group. They've got a great place to sit with comfy chairs and included Wi-Fi and a screen on the TV that they can attach their computer to and do their presentations. So that's great because you're going to get a killer link from meetup.com and from that group's website. Or if you don't have a space, just look for local groups that are looking for meeting sponsors, and you can throw in 50, 60 bucks a month to buy their pizza and their Cokes, and you get a killer couple of links out of it. So it's awesome. Find any local based blogger and figure out a way to get them to write about you. Even if that blogger's post says, this is a sponsored post, who cares? You still get an awesome local link out of it. And because it's locally based, local customers are going to be reading that and potentially become customers. This is a little bit of a different take. It's not what your business does in the community, but talk to ownership, management staff, and even employees, depending on the size of your business, and see what people do in their free time. Because if somebody's passionate about something and it's one of their hobbies and they're involved in a local club or a local organization, chances are you can probably get a link because that person is involved with that organization. So if somebody's really involved in their church, or they've got a kid on a club soccer team that travels around a lot, or maybe they're the president of the local Corvette car club, anything like that, great opportunities, especially if that person is on the leadership group of that organization or club, because typically they're going to have a leadership page on their site and get linked there. Join all the local business associations that you can, Better Business Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, and then anything specific to your local area. They're really great. It's totally worth the money to get a killer, really relevant local link. Look for local business directories. And a lot of times this might be like your local TV station, local newspaper, churches will have business directories, city websites will have business directories. Find all the places you can be listed in these business directories and go after those as well. And then this one's a little bit tougher to broach the subject with your clients, but every ethnic group or every nationality will have people in that community that will have a website that will be, for instance, all of the Australian-owned businesses in Dallas, or all of the Iranian-owned businesses in Dallas, or whatever it might be. There's probably a Austin, Texas, Irish Dry Cleaners Association or something like that. But I'm spitballing here, obviously, but every nationality or ethnic group will have a website of businesses that are owned, or suggestions for people of that group to patronize those businesses. So that's really killer if you can get into those lists, because again, your competitors probably can't. LGBTQ is another huge one here too. So any of these specific groups that you can get mentioned on, it's great because those are real world users that are going to click through and patronize your business because of the fact that you're there. So it's real world benefit again, besides just being a benefit for SEO. Here's another one that we kind of stumbled across a few years ago that's been a golden opportunity. Is a lot of neighborhood watches will have their own websites for the neighborhoods now, typically because some dude in the neighborhood is like, dude, I can do WordPress. Let's throw up a WordPress site. And then they need content for that site. So if you can give them anything to write about there, you're going to get a killer link. Now, we started off just giving them tchotchkes, like, oh, here's some crap from the business, you know, coasters, pens, hats, t-shirts, whatever, and get a link out of it. Now we've even figured out you don't even have to do that. You can give some sort of a neighborhood specific special. So like as a car dealer, hey, if you live in this neighborhood, you get an extra $5 off of an oil change, and it's secretly stackable. So even if another special comes out and says can't be combined with other offers, guess what? This neighborhood gets another $5 off. We started doing this for SEO because it's great, because it's a link that's relevant down to a really concise neighborhood area. But we end up doing it now because these links are pure gold. You get tons and tons of click-throughs and conversions off of this because these people are on these neighborhood sites all the time, gossiping about their neighbors and talking about what's going on in the next neighborhood over. So you'll end up getting a lot of real-world traffic and business off of getting these links as well. Again, double it. Go for SEO, go for real world. And then use Google. Come up with a list of the keywords that you're going after and just insert your city name. So look for Austin church event, Austin school awards, Austin golf tournaments, and you can find all of these opportunities based on whichever vertical you're going after. And make sure you use the search operators of in URL. For those of you that don't know, if you were to do, for example, Dallas, in URL sponsorships, that's going to look for Dallas-based digital entities that have the word sponsorships in the actual URL for a page, because typically if they're going to have sponsors, they're going to have sponsor or sponsor us or sponsors or sponsorships in that URL, and that lets you find sponsorship opportunities. It can be really cool. Now, everybody's watching this going, okay, these are some cool tactical things, but you know, I've heard stuff like this before. But what do we actually do for link building? Because another thing that I've noticed in seeing lots and lots of stuff about link building over the years is nobody ever really talks about, here's the actual day-to-day of what to do. Not just here's tactics to get links, but how do we get links? What do we do on a day-to-day basis? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual process of what to do for local link building. One of the most important things to start off with is asking the right questions when you onboard a new client. So I've included a link here. If you're going to write this down, make sure you're writing it in all lowercase because it's case sensitive, but that will take you to our link building questionnaire. That's one of the onboarding documents that we give to every new client that we work with. And it's 2 or 3 or 4 pages. I don't remember exactly, but it's a bunch of questions that will ask that business, hey, what have you done in the past? What have you done for community stuff? Run through a lot of the tactics I just used. It asks about what do your, ownership and management staff do in their free time and what organizations and all that sort of stuff. So it gives you a lot of low-hanging fruit. So you can just come in and kind of mop up those opportunities, because a lot of times businesses will sponsor something and not even ask for a link or think to ask for a link. But you can come in and be Superman and be like, oh, you've done all of these things in the last 2 years, and you can go clean up those opportunities and knock out 10, 15, 20 local links really quickly and make a big impact very quickly for that business. So that questionnaire is really awesome. Make sure you check it out. And then you want to dive into the actual research phase. Now, I'm going to mention this in a minute, but with us, the way that we run our local link building campaigns, we run on a quarterly basis. So we're typically going to spend about 8 to 10 weeks doing research, and then the final 2 to 4 weeks doing acquisition and outreach. So you kind of want to think of it like that. If you have a set start and end date to a link building campaign, then you can rinse and repeat and refresh. And it's easier than kind of not really having a focus and trying to go for forever. Research phase is the first bit. When you're pulling links, it's important to not use a single tool. Each tool is giving you the inbound links that point to your site based on that tool's individual recreation of Google's index. So you should hopefully know enough about SEO to understand that Google spiders go out and crawl sites and store copies so that the algorithm can reference that index to return search results. So all of these link tools and SEO tools are creating their own link index that's trying to approximate what that tool set thinks Google is doing, so that then you can see what works. But here's the thing. If I was to look at a link list for your site on Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs, and SEMrush, and yes, I will still call it SEMrush forever. You look at the 4 combined, and there's going to be anywhere from a 10 to 15, maybe even 20 to 25% difference between each individual link export. Because again, it's based on what that tool's spiders go out and crawl and which links they follow. And you'll notice that sometimes these tools will tell you, oh, you lost 100 links since last month. It doesn't necessarily mean that those went away. It could just be that the tool crawled the sites differently and didn't crawl in the same direction. So we always like to combine multiple tools so that we can get a better picture of the true link profile for the business. Then you want to drop all of those into Excel and then dedupe so that you have a list of unique links to get the best picture of what's going on. Then once you've pulled your links, you want to pull your competitors' links as well. And you want to look for easy opportunities of the things that your competitors have links from that you don't have links from. But keep in mind, you've got to get unique links to win. Google wants to see that you've got links that your competitors don't have. So this shouldn't be your only strategy. And this is where I see a lot of people failing, is they're just going to say, oh, let's just go for the easy stuff that my competitors have and I don't have, and that's what I'm going to do for a year. You don't want to do that. But it's a really good initial strategy, because if somebody's linking to your competitor, it's probably going to be really easy for you to get a link from the same website. So A, it's an easy link to acquire quickly. And B, remember, I said you need unique links to win, which means right now, if a competitor has a link from this site and you don't, your competitor is benefiting from that link. So if you get a link from the same site, it doesn't do a whole lot for you. It'll help a little, but more importantly, it's going to devalue that link for your competitor because it's no longer unique for your competitor. So anybody that's seen me present before knows that I kind of like to go off on these tangents and talk about cool anecdotes and stories, especially if you've ever hung out with me at a pub. You know that I kind of really go off down story rabbit holes. So I do have a fun story to share today. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I spoke at a conference, and afterwards, someone contacted me and said, I need some help. And it was an attorney. And he said, I can't figure out why this other law firm in town is consistently outranking me on every single possible search phrase. I don't get it. And then he continued on to say, well, I know a lot about SEO. I understand SEO. I go to all these conferences. Like, I know how this stuff works. And I should be number one because I've got 3 times as many links as he does. Which clearly not the case, because it's not just about how many you have. It's about the relevancy of your links. So I said, okay, cool. I'll take a look. So I thought, first things first, let's do something easy. Let's graph the links out between the 2 law firms based on the domain authority, because we were using Moz at the time, because that's the tool that the attorney also used internally. So it was the easiest one-to-one match for what he was looking at. So I graphed out their link profiles based on domain authority. So not looking at how many links they had, but just looking at where those links fell on the authority scale. So it looked like this. The first set there is a domain authority of above 50. The second set, domain authority of 11 to 50. The bottom is domain authority of 0 to 10. Now keep in mind, the guy that was red had 3 times as many links as the guy that was blue, but I'm not looking at link count. I'm looking at where the authority fell. And I noticed here, wow, the guy in blue has almost 2/3 of his links, or actually more than 2/3 of his links, are above 50 domain authority. So they're more powerful links. So then I broke it down even further, and you can see that, 60% of his links are above domain authority of 7. And then on the flip side, almost 60% of the other guy's links were below domain authority of 50. And in fact, almost 30% were below 25. So even though the guy in red had way more links, the guy in blue had better links. Now, this isn't a perfect example for this presentation, because I told you earlier, we don't care about authority. Here's why it's important. The guy in red, all of his links were from SEOdirectory.com and XYZ PDQ SEO results.com and these crappy directory sites that he was just going and filling out forms and getting links from. So they were all low authority. If the guy in red had instead gotten a lot of local links from local entities, this graph would look the same. The guy in blue would still skew towards the really high end of domain authority above 70. The guy with 3 times as many links would skew towards the low end of below domain authority of 25. But the guy in red would have been winning every single time, because all of those low authority links would have been local links. The reason he wasn't winning is because none of his links were local. They were all just shitty, regular, crappy links. If you'd like to do the same thing, I'm going to share that sheet with you. So it's my super badass link worksheet. You can download it right there. Again, make sure you put it in all lowercase, bit.ly/gifts-bad-ass-link-sheet. It lets you put in your link profile, your competitor's link profile, graphs everything out for you. Also tells you what links your competitors have that you don't have. Also tells you what links you've lost since the last time you've run the tool. It's a really cool little tool. Also, when you're doing your link research, don't get stuck in your own competitive bubble. Pull links from similar businesses in other cities. You're not trying to compete with them, but a lot of times you can pull stuff up from other cities and get really unique ideas you never would have thought of if you stayed in your own competitive bubble. Also, check other verticals. It doesn't matter. You're not trying to compete with them, but you might see cool patterns or cool ideas you never would have come up with. So then as you're doing all of this research, you want to create a spreadsheet to list out all of your link opportunities. And when you're creating this spreadsheet, you want to list out every possible detail. What's the originating site? What's the cost? Is it going to cost me money for a sponsorship? Do I have to create a piece of content to fill a content gap hole? Do I have to do something else? Is there time involved because it's a volunteer opportunity? What's the time frame? This is a 5K that's not happening until August, or this is something I can get immediately, or this is a link that's only going to exist for 6 months. What's the contact info? Who do I have to talk to get this handled? Put all of that in the sheet. And yes, you do want to go ahead and dig up that contact info before you get to the outreach phase. Because what you want to do is get everything aligned on this spreadsheet so you can make your decisions. And then when you choose which ones to go after, you don't then have to do additional research to figure out who the right person to talk to is. Because a lot of times you're going to have to jump through hoops and send multiple emails or make multiple phone calls to different people to find out the right person to talk to. Then also on that sheet, decide which page on your site you're going to link to, because depending on what you're trying to do with your link building strategy, you may want to deep link to pages further inside the site, or you may want to put them to the homepage or a major product page. If there's an opportunity to get a link that you don't have to put any effort into and you can just get automatically, get that link as you go. But otherwise, when you're done, you've got to decide which links you're going to go after. So you're either going to go to your boss or to your client with that sheet of all the opportunities, explain the value and cost of each of those, and let them choose. Unless maybe you're in-house and you're doing it for your own business, then you can just make the call yourself if you've got a budget that you can play within. Once you've decided which ones you're going to go after, then it's time to lock those down with link outreach. Now, you've already done all the research, so it's going to be pretty easy to just pick up the phone and get a link. And yes, you should always call whenever you have the opportunity. It's much easier to do this through a phone call or even through a Zoom than it is to try to send an email. If you are going to try to do an email, make sure you keep it simple. Here's where a lot of people fail. They get really complex and explain the value of the link and why you should be linking to me because I need links and blah, blah, blah. No, because you don't want to mention getting a link right away, because most of the time the people that you're talking to have no idea what SEO is or how the internet works. They are not web savvy people. And even if they've got an IT guy or a website guy, those people are not as web savvy as we are. So they're not going to understand it if you get right into the weeds. So you want to focus on the relationship that you have with that business first, and then point out why their users, why their traffic will benefit from having a link to your site on their site. So that's the whole process. And then, like I said, you rinse and repeat and do that same process every 2 to 3 months, basically once a quarter. And keep in mind, it's okay to not get links every month. If you're going to do the process this way, you're typically going to go a couple of months without getting a whole lot of links. Then you're going to get a lot of links when you do that acquisition phase at the end. Then you're going to have a couple without. So it's going to kind of go up and down. That's okay. It's perfectly natural. So if you change the way that you think about building links, you can totally rock some local links and win big for either yourself or your clients. Now, I know I went through a lot. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. And now when you look at local search results, you're not just going to stare and drool, because you'll actually understand how to get some powerful local links that will make a difference. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be really, really excited about building some local links. So peace. I'm out of here. That was Ricky Bobby's guide to local link building in 2021 and beyond. There's my Twitter handle. If you're wanting to tweet about how this was the most amazing link building presentation you've ever seen, please make sure you include my name on that. But also you can follow me on Twitter. That's my social platform of choice. I like to tweet a lot of goofy stuff about movies, like a whole lot of stuff lately about Justice League. And also I tweet a lot about local SEO and SEO in general. And I live tweet conferences when I'm attending conferences. Also, if you have any questions, you can email me right there. And that's the presentation, folks. So I will stop sharing the screen and we can start chatting. Whew.
Wow.
Boom.
As always, not surprising. Of course, we got lots of questions. Holy cow. Great job, Greg. Incredible presentation. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. Wit Digital, he asked,
Thanks,
what
Wit.
tools? Yeah, and he said, thank you. You see, everyone's all about the compliments today. What tools do you recommend for link building and content optimization? He said he's familiar with Yoast, but he's always looking for new tools and alternatives.
So Yoast is an element of your tool belt, but I wouldn't really count that as a content optimization tool. It is a basic guideline. Now, don't get me wrong. Yoast is awesome. We use it on all of our sites, but I wouldn't count that as a content optimization tool. For content optimization, it's really more understanding how SEO works and knowing what matters for that particular vertical. And, that's going to come down to doing the right keyword research in the first place. I don't really feel like you need a tool for content optimization. When it comes to link building, I mean, for sure, you want to have SEMrush, Ahrefs at a bare minimum. And then, you can always drop in Majestic, Moz. There's other stuff out there too.
That's a good point. You know what? We do actually here at SEMrush.
I'm never going to do it.
We do actually have a really great WordPress plugin for optimizing your content on your site. So if you haven't played with that, it's a little interesting and it can be helpful. So I recommend testing that out for sure. Elizabeth,
Yeah, I'd like to.
Oh, go
Can
ahead.
I add one, Shelly? The one I was really amazed about, and everybody overlooks this, is the revamped Bing Webmaster Tools.
Yeah.
And this is really weird, but like 2 weeks ago, I even discovered you can put your competitors in there, and Bing will give you all their backlinks, and actually the landing pages, the anchor text, everything. So even for competitors, I was blown away. And since I believe they have the second biggest index of all of them, it's actually quite a good one, and it's free.
Wow, that was an incredible tip. I did not realize that. I cannot wait to go play.
And the really cool thing is you can now log in with your GSC account, so your Google account, and it will import all of your sites with one click.
That is handy for sure. Any tips that you have for tools, Olesia?
I think that SEMrush. SEMrush has a very good content tool. They are you can see a quick analysis of the local listings and the local websites and the number of words they have and their titles and their descriptions. And they even show some words that you can use in your content too. So sometimes I do use that.
Right.
It's a very nice one.
I agree. I'm partial. Elizabeth asks if no follow links are good for local, does that mean social media links are important and good to go after for local SEO benefits?
Nope. Easy answer. Social media links don't matter for SEO, period.
That's a
Agreed.
good question though. So Orion Martin, if I said that right, does a site build in React hurt SEO? Our local SEO has suffered since we switched sites. Ooh.
No, lots of sites are built with React. It's more likely that when you switched, whoever was coding the new site probably changed page URLs, architecture, content, lots of things on the site that could have changed. If it was a complete mirror where everything is exactly the same, you probably wouldn't have seen a drop. And if you did, there's still got to be something there, because just the technology of React wouldn't be enough to cause a rankings drop. It would have to be something related to your content or your architecture.
Right. Possibly a rendering issue.
Could be.
Yeah, definitely test that. A really good way to do that is just go to a page and take like a little block of text in the middle of your page and go to Google, put it in quotes, and make sure that content is actually indexed in there. If you see your page pop up, it should show. If not, you likely have a rendering problem and Google is not able to crawl your content.
Yep.
So
You can also try.
yes.
You can also try rich snippets testing tool and see how Google sees your HTML code there and see maybe there's some problem.
Perfect options. All right. So how about client happiness wants to know? I love that, client happiness. Very cute. How I might hire you just because of that. How about news releases targeted on your own city?
Yeah, press release SEO died about 5 years ago. Not to say you shouldn't do news releases or press releases if you've got something worthwhile that should be in the news and you did something groundbreaking, but you're doing that because you've got something groundbreaking and newsworthy, not because you're trying to do SEO. So press release SEO, don't do it. It's bad. It's not going to work. And at best and at worst could potentially get you into penalty territory. So just stay away from it for SEO purposes.
Right. So, okay, I got a question for you guys. So occasionally I'm in these SEO groups and you definitely have a bunch of people. It's kind of mixed. You got some white hat and then you have some people that are clearly those spammers creating those listings in GMB. And I hear them talk about how they build backlinks, not just to their website, but their GMB profile. And that is supposed to help them rank in Google My Business. Is that a thing? What do you think? Is that useful?
I mean, people have talked about it over the years. I would not put any link building effort into linking to my Google My Business because there's not, I mean, just because some black hat dude said he did it and it worked, I mean, don't listen to black hatters anyway, because you should always do stuff that's sustainable. That's not going to get you in trouble in the future. But if you're going through the effort of all the stuff that I just went through to build links, why wouldn't you point it at your site and get the clear proven value of getting your site more visibility?
Right. I like that answer. Very good.
Well, on the other hand, like sometimes things get mentioned, like those things get shared. It's perfectly natural that this happens, right? So people put it in email, people link to it on web pages. So it does happen. I've not seen an impact, but it's not like pure spamming. It's also naturally happening. I've seen it happen.
Well, so, I mean, that's the difference, though. If it's happening naturally, who cares? You don't want to do it if you're actively trying to build links to the profile. If it happens in the wild, who cares?
No. I think a really big one for me was for certain things, talk about what you actually offer on the page you link to, because this is often overlooked. So you put it to a homepage where you don't really describe what you actually offer. So those are things when optimizing content, especially if you have multiple locations, it's quite a big thing.
Interesting. So Pablo actually asked, is it better that my links, he beat me to it. Same question I had.
I thought you were just being cool and like phrasing it into a cool segue.
No, I promise I didn't mean to steal your question, Pablo. You get full credit. Sorry. So Donna Donahue asked, hi, Donna. Do those local business directories now become citations we've got to monitor?
Nope, because here's a news flash. I've been busy today. I don't know if somebody already mentioned this earlier on the mega webinar today, but citations don't really matter for SEO anymore. It's same sort of thing. You read tons of stuff out there. I mean, you can look at a presentation or a recording of a presentation I did 5 years ago where I'm like, get all the citations. And now they just don't really matter. Google's algorithm's gotten smarter. So your citations don't have to match character for character everywhere that your name is mentioned. It's more on the citation side. Just make sure that customer touch points are correct, because you don't want some older generation person going to Yellow Pages and your phone number doesn't work there. They're not going to go Google it. They're going to go to the next business. But other than that, like, go get these local directories because you want some of those local links. Don't worry about it. I mean, if something changes over time, who cares?
I agree partially, Greg, because I've also seen stuff happening where I'd update all the Google My Business listings for like a massive company, doing a test, and then periodically it would just override it with all the old details.
Yep.
And that is definitely citations or feeds from chambers of commerce. And so I think it's not the single thing, but the majority of the ones people go to, it should be updated with the right exactly. URL, the right opening hours, and all of those things. Because otherwise, any change you make to GMB just gets overwritten at some point.
Well, and it's important. We work with a lot of car dealerships, and car dealerships will get purchased by larger dealer groups, and then the name changes. I'm not saying don't worry about citations. Like, clearly, if your name changes or you change call tracking providers, you got a different phone number, or like you said, your hours have to match. Like, that important stuff, for sure, you need to make sure that's updated everywhere. But even in the example that Arnout just gave, it's really, I mean, sure, Google My Business may change because it matches that info, but you should really do your due diligence and go out and update those things. If you're changing it on Google My Business, because you don't want Google My Business to not match the majority of information out there, because that confuses customers. Who cares what it matters for search engines? You don't want customers to be confused.
Agreed.
I also suggest adding your major citations to the same as schema in local business. On about us.
I'll be interested. We have Darren Shaw on later on, so I'm going to ask him the same question. We'll see what he says about citations, because I know
he thinks they matter more. Spoiler alert: he'll probably, I don't know what his presentation is, but he and I were talking about the other day, and he thinks that it's a really slow burn on citations and that they matter more over time. But I don't know. I disagree.
That's all right. That's the best thing about this industry is we all have different.
We agree to disagree.
Yeah, we agree to disagree. Exactly. So Jonathan Bullock, he says, are we not allowed to point our GMB to a co-working space, even if we have staff working full time in that location?
You can. You're just not going to show up well in searches, because basically all of the personal injury attorneys out there who cheated with this tactic. It's totally possible. Like, I'm in a Regus type office right now. It's called Spaces. It's like the upscale Regus, but we have a GMB here at this, but I don't really care if my GMB shows up, because that's not how I get business. If you're really trying to show up well in map hack searches or in Google Maps, you've got to understand that you have to meet the guidelines of, it has to have permanent signage. You have to have your staff there full time, which it sounds like Jonathan is saying that they do. Even if you meet all of those guidelines and do everything else correct, you have to understand you're probably going to have diminished visibility because of the fact that Google just doesn't like co-working spaces and those office rental type places.
I also feel this might have something to do with where you are, because I see a lot of them pumping up in, say, the Netherlands, for instance. But maybe not so much in where there's even more spam, like in the US. So, I mean, I regularly am in multiple of those co-working spaces, and they have plenty of businesses. So in this building located, and the whole list comes up. It's almost like how do you call it? A mall. In the way they show it. So,
well, effectively, it's the same thing as a big office building that has 25 different law firms in it. They're all at one basic address. It's just that so many people have abused the co-working space and the Regus type model that Google's basically kind of come to a point that said, hey, don't use these places. Now, it doesn't mean you can't. I mean, we've got people that have used those in the past, and they still show up pretty well. But I'll tell you for sure, if you're looking at, you really want to put your best foot forward and have the best chance of showing up in searches, I would not suggest being in a Regis.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends. It is location dependent. If there's other professionals that has a listing that does the exact same thing that you do and targets the same category, you're more likely to have issues. But all those people that, you know, went and got those just mailboxes at co-working spaces, not even,
Yep.
you know, they kind of ruined it for everyone, to be quite honest.
It happens all the time.
It does. Darn these SEOs. We're going to end up putting just co-working in general out of business one people, which is kind of sad. But I mean, maybe COVID did that anyways. But Accelerator Dental says awesome talk, by the way. As well as the local link building focus you just spoke about. Should you also focus on the odd higher DA link, domain authority link, or is this not needed?
Back to what I said in the presentation, I don't give a squat if it's follow or no follow, and I don't give a squat if it's high authority or low authority. If it's a link that's relevant to my business, I'm going to get it. Most of the time, that's going to mean it's a low authority, but hey, man, if there's a high authority link that's all a local link, well, then get it. Or if it's a high authority link that's industry relevant. You know, it's not just about only getting local links. You want to get links from sites that are relevant to the vertical that you're in, and those won't be local, but those are still relevant. So, you know, it's not completely ignore everything and just get low authority links. It's get the links that are relevant to your business. Most of the time, that's going to be locally relevant links. Those are the easier ones to get. But hey, if you can get a better link, go get it. Sure.
Right. Honestly, like you mentioned the church links, and I love that. Actually have a friend that does videography for real estate, and every other Sunday he goes and helps video service at our church. I'm like, go after him for a link. You're donating all that time.
Right.
Imagine how valuable that would be.
But it's everywhere. Like one that often works is if you have a service that works for foreign students. Most unis, they have a page that help people around and help them get settled, find housing and all of that. So simply just giving them a huge discount on, say, a tour through Amsterdam or this, like, it's right there. Like, and the opportunities are everywhere. You just have to think about what kind of business you are, and then think from the perspective, like, who can I offer this to? Same like if a band wants a boat tour through Amsterdam, and I know that they're very popular, they've got tons of links and everything, or it's a company that wants to take their employees on a boat trip. You can have the boat trip for free. I just want you to write something about the blog, about the trip on the blog. We'd love a little bit of exposure. Done.
Yep.
Right.
It's like, it's everywhere.
Would you recommend, so the university example, say you're a local clothing store, would you give a discount and say, refer your friends?
Well, you could do that, but I mean, it's a little more far-fetched. But if it's very closely related to what those students get here, so what do they need to explore the city? They need to find housing. They need to know the public transport. Like if there's anything there that really helps, it's like a win-win. And if you then give them 20 or 40% off, you're done.
Pizza delivery. I mean,
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, interesting concept. That's a really good question. So so we've heard lots of Greg's tips. Olesia, what would you say? What would you recommend is like your go-to tip for local link building, or your favorite?
I did like for the previous question. I never pursue those high authority links because they take too much time and too many of my resources. Unless they happen naturally and I exactly know that I should go there and take those. Somehow I try to follow Greg's strategy more, low-hanging fruits and some easy opportunities. And whatever he mentioned in his presentation, I find this awesome.
He about covers them all, right? What about you, Arnout?
Well, the simple thing is a lot of the answers are in front of your eyes in Google. So if you start searching your street, where you're located as a local business, if you start using those kind of things or area or whatever, there's so many websites that actually pop up. Where you can easily just you'll find your way around them, but there's a lot of people that own businesses. They talk to other businesses. They all have websites. Why don't they just link together? It's so easy. Yep. They talk to each other. So whenever I have a client like that, I basically go in and saying, so who do you know in this street, in this area? And he goes, yeah, this one, and that's my supplier for my bread, and he does the greens and everything. There you go. The relationship is already there. Just ask for the link, give them a call, or give them a bottle of wine, and said, I just like working together.
I'm now that totally is like a light bulb, because I am a member. So I live in a community called Creekside within a bigger area called the Woodlands, but we have a Real Housewives of Creekside Facebook group, and these are all the wives. Yeah. So I'm just going to ask, go to Facebook. If you have these groups right there, you're right. It's a lot easier than I think we realize. We make it more difficult. We get in our heads about it. You got to get out and look around and utilize the resources you have. So
yeah, and this also makes it easier. If you are actually the owner of a business, it's way easier to do because you have the relationship. Don't outsource it to me or somebody else to outreach or do cold calling or whatever. I don't want to do that. And the chances of me succeeding are this compared to you with this, because there is a personal relationship.
Yep.
Wow. Yes. Such great points. You guys were amazing co-hosts. Thank you for being here with me. We actually have Darren Shaw up next, and he is waiting to come up and blow our minds and totally talk crap about Greg's citations.
Okay.
I only have good things
to say,
to
guys.
say about Greg.
Bye, guys.